Hello. Fiona Bruce. Fiona Bruce. She's supposed to be impartial, isn't she? She works for the BBC as a high-ranking BBC presenter, and yet, the moment she talks about Stanley Johnson, Boris's father, who Boris wants to nominate for a knighthood, for what? Services to women? She says that the alleged domestic abuse, the domestic abuse that his wife wrote about and talked about, this was just a one-off. Well, whether it's a one-off or whether it's a regular thing, that still makes Stanley Johnson a domestic abuser, does it not? And yet he's being offered a knighthood, and Fiona Bruce, one of these BBC impartial presenters, is exonerating him before the interview even gets underway. That is extraordinary, given the background of the present moment, with Gary Lineker's suspension for suggesting that the language of Suella Braverman is inappropriate. I entirely agree that her language is inappropriate. I don't entirely agree with the German connection, because I think actually Britain was just as bad as Germany in using intemperate language about migrants in the 1930s and before. We only have to think back to the 1905 Aliens Act. And it's our guilt because of that that led to the development of the Refugee Convention and the UN conventions, for which we were hugely responsible and hugely involved and invested. And I think when we're looking at this BBC thing, and when we're looking at whether or not the BBC has to rethink its ideas, yes it does. Fiona Bruce is another very good reason why it does, because you can't anticipate the problem if you are the interviewer. You shouldn't be drawing, you shouldn't be making these statements, particularly about domestic abuse. Do we not support those people who have been abused by their partners? Do we not support them? Yes, we do. And is Fiona Bruce supporting them by saying, "Oh, it's just a little, it's nothing important. It was only once, and yet we want to give this man a knighthood." I've met him. He's a charming man. I wouldn't give him a knighthood. I'd put him in the gutter. But he's a charming man, absolutely charming. In fact, I'd be delighted to spend time with him. But then I'm not a woman.